Well, you're gonna have a 3-minute countdown, right? That's fine. I'm still gonna mute my mic now and then and eat. I hunger. Did you finish it? I'm so proud. It only took you a month. Done. Yeah. Lol. I was putting notes on the thing about the characters, just who they were, because we're awful with names. I don't remember a lot of their last names, but whatever.
So we are now on camera. So hi guys, thank you for joining. And yeah, on my book I ended up using the notes feature on the Kindle, and that helped a ton. But so we are discussing Scavenger Hunt by Michaelbrent Collings. And we're doing our monthly book review because doing anything more often than that would be absolutely insane.
We already do videos every week for you guys
Sometimes
on
multiple.
movies and sometimes some bonus ones, so you get one. You get one book a month.
And if anything, that gives you guys plenty of time to figure out how to get the book and read it along so that way you can join us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes. So it is good to have that extra time. Do you want to just jump right in, or do you want to?
I just realized that your video is a lot smaller than my video. And oh well, we'll deal with it next time. I don't care. Okay, guys, this is the first time that I've ever done a live event, and let me just say, it is way more complicated than I ever freaking fathomed. I mean, like, dear God. Like, I thought video editing could be complicated. Like, this is a whole new
It is a whole new ball game. We were trying to troubleshoot things beforehand in the week, but it's a little difficult.
Well, it's like, yeah, it worked perfectly fine, and then now it's like, like it's supposed to keep all of your settings. So I don't know why it made you smaller. So I'm sorry, but
Who knows? I
oh well.
mean, it's fine. This
Yep.
is fine.
Yep. But anyways,
I just came back from a run. Like, I'm too tired to care.
oh,
This is fine.
that's okay. I'll be the energy for today because
This
I'm
is fine.
sure I'll be more pep in general, anyways. But to
I'm
start
sure I'll
off,
be fine after my tea.
yeah.
It does give me some good energy, but until then, I'm just like, give me a minute.
So moving on to what tea we're drinking today. So this morning I needed some caffeination, and so I'm going with Earl Grey. Just love that black tea and bergamot. So good.
And I am drinking Brutality's Dragon Fruit Force tea.
Yes, you like that one. You've been drinking
I
that a lot.
adore this tea. It is so friggin' good. And I love that it is loose leaf. We do have a composter in the backyard for our garden. So when I'm finished with the tea, I just empty out the infuser into the composter. So
Very nice. Very nice.
it's wonderful.
But shall we get with the summary?
Sure.
And I guess, do you want, well, I guess, okay, this is how we'll do it because this is going to be a long summary. Um, I'll just,
It's not that long.
well, well, like with the twist and stuff like that, but okay, well, all right, I'll do the general summary and you can add stuff as I go along, I guess. All right.
Well, I mean, we're gonna get into detail when we start going over like the scale and things like that. So we don't have to go like too in depth with the summary.
Okay. But anyways, I'm sassy today. I'm sorry.
I noticed. And you know what?
I, good, good. I love our dynamic. But anyways, so it kind of starts off as your typical like scavenger hunt horror movie, I guess, where they or like almost like a Saw horror movie where these people wake up in a white room and they have and with the threat of death, they are told that they have to do like certain things, but um it's let's see, one, two, it's three guys and two girls. And as the book goes on, like they have them do these different tasks that kind of build on top of each other. And as the book is going through, it's explaining what each character, like what their backstory is. And you find out by the end of the book that, well, I mean, kind of during the end of the book, you kind of get the hint that they're all interconnected. But by the end of the book, you know solidly that they all are connected to this, what would you call it, like a human trafficking type of ring.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's more of a child trafficking, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They were taking kids from this orphanage or like off the street from school or whatever, but they were all from this orphanage.
Yeah.
And they were selling them to the highest bidder basically. And the orphanage was involved.
Yeah. I'm gonna
So,
turn up the light. Um yeah, so let's see. Do you want to get into the characters or do you want to go ahead and move on to the entertainment scale first?
um let's get into the different characters first.
Okay.
They don't introduce too many, thankfully. Makes it a little bit easier
Yeah.
because we are awful with names, guys. We're so bad with names.
But I feel like we're getting better. We're finding tips and tricks. I don't know.
We make notes.
Yeah. But hey,
We
that's
make
how
notes.
it's like that's how I remember. It's like I
Yeah.
wouldn't know anyone's birthday if I didn't write it
Oh
down
no.
and set
No,
reminders.
thank goodness for people having it on like Facebook and things like that. So I can just go through and put it on a calendar. Because if I don't have it on the calendar, there ain't no way I'm gonna remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but
But
let's see. So I
so
I'm
mhm.
putting aside any complaints I have for this book until later, but the characters are a part of some of my complaints. But anyways, just wanted to preface that right quick. So
Yeah,
they're the three. I guess I'll introduce the three men, and you can introduce the two women and
sure.
Mr. Do Good, I guess. Um,
Okay.
good luck. But anyways,
Thanks.
so the three men that are playing the game is Clint, Solomon Black, and this guy who they establish it's not his actual name, but the book only refers to him as Chong.
Yeah, they mention his real name like once.
I don't even remember. Like I remember them mentioning that it wasn't his real name, but I don't remember them actually mentioning
They
what
did.
his real. Okay.
It was when they were kind of introducing his backstory when he was a kid,
Hmm.
and that's pretty much the last time they mention it.
Yeah.
So he is Chong.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll do it in the order. Well, I guess I kind of messed it. No, because they pretty much introduced Clint and then Solomon Black and then Chong and then okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, so we're good. Clint he's an orphan and he grew up with his sister in the orphanage and they vowed to never be split apart. And so whenever one of them would be adopted, they would essentially just pitch a fit until they're like, we're done with this, and then bring the kid back. Well, so Clint was sleeping one night. I guess I don't know if they were in the same bed or if they're just like sleeping right next to each other.
No, they were in separate beds, but they were in
Okay,
the same
good.
room.
Okay, acceptable. Same bed,
Yeah.
iffy, but but anyways, he woke up and his sister was gone, and uh, it just from my from what I saw, they just said that she disappeared, and they didn't really establish that she had like died, but the assumption was that she had
Yeah.
died. And so he had
Yeah.
a grave marker in a graveyard with her information, but there was just no body. Um, and so he's kind of like he definitely was holding a lot of guilt because he had been visiting her grave every single year for at this point in time in the book for 10 years. So we'll put Clint aside. So next is Solomon Black, and I'll complain about his name later, but he is a black man who grew up in the hood essentially. Like his dad was in the Five Deuces, and essentially his dad was in and out, like barely a part of his life at all. He just came to uh, be with his mom essentially, and then would just leave whenever he was done with her. And so it's kind of strange. So Solomon, he obviously has some grudges against his father, but then there's also some areas where he wanted to be like his father, because back in the day, his father was held in high regard in the Five Deuces, and Solomon wanted to be in a similar standard. Um, so he figured out a way by getting they call it a sponsor, uh, where he had found a person that was in the gang that knew his dad. And after doing a few things, um, he ended up recommending him to join the gang. And it was Two Teeth that gave him like the ultimate test. And then Solomon went to this house, and then that's where they kicked the crap out of him, and then they initiated him. And but anyway, so like his backstory is the longest out of everyone. So this is
It
gonna
really
it was
was.
so long. But so it's like he's been so it follows him where he's been in the Five Deuces for a couple of years, and he's kind of worked his way up the ranks, and he's very well known, and his gang name is Big Wise. Um, but so Two Teeth, which is kind of like the head of the gang, at least at this point in time, he's wanting to expand the gang and what they're doing and make it more profitable and stuff like that. So they decide to expand it from not just drugs but to human trafficking. And whenever this becomes relevant later in the book, but Solomon, or Big Wise at the time, goes to pick up this child, and they put her in a suitcase, and he takes her off and then gives her to the next group of people that was going to bring her to her destination. But anyways, that was too much for him, and so he decided that he needed to leave. And so they're in cahoots with like the sturdy cop that knows what's going on, but it's silenced with money. And so Big Wise was given the task to give him more money. And so on his way, he is like, "Oh well, if I just skim some off the top and change the bills out so he won't notice immediately, then we're good." And he was freaking brilliant because
It was pretty inspired.
he had drank very heavily from just being messed up with seeing the kid being trafficked and him being a part of that. And so to prevent the cop from wanting to count the money, he pretty
Because he
much,
always did.
yeah, he like vomited everywhere, and even like got it some on the bag, and like
Yeah.
he was yeah, so he used that to to get away safely from the cop, and then he ran like he moved states
Yeah.
using the money. And he
Yeah. He
was
got on a bus and hopped
yeah.
states.
And
But that bought
because
him some time.
yeah, and because of his background, he couldn't find a job. And so after working along with this church, one of the members was like, you have a great story, why don't you be a motivational speaker? And so he becomes a motivational speaker, and some stuff happens with a 4-month love interest, but it's not really relevant to the plot, so I'm just kind of gonna skip over that. Um, but anyway, it it's just him. Essentially, what happens to her causes him to spiral down, and and then he ends up where he ends up in the room, and and then Chong is a Chinese man. And but I will give it to them. They specifically said that he was tall and large, so he's not your, at least physically, he's not your stereotypical.
Yeah.
But this
And he
kid,
did say that he hated being called that, and it's kind of, he still uses it as a reminder.
yeah, he essentially used it as almost like a shield. Like
Hmm.
it's like, if people are going to call me this, then I'm going to wear it proudly. At least that's how I took it. But but so they kind of step back to where Chong is in elementary school and or middle school, and they say that he's being teased a lot, and the kids are calling him Chong because he's Chinese, and he's extremely smart, and so the kids are jealous and all of that jazz, but I mean, he's so smart that he's going to college and he's like 12, like extremely smart. But he ends up murdering one of the main bullies that had kind of started calling him Chong, and then he murdered his parents. And then
He did it trying to get the inheritance, but he found out that it was in a trust and he would not have access to it until he reached a certain age.
yeah, he was so mad. Yeah. I guess
Maybe
I
do your research.
yeah. Um and he kills someone else, but I don't really feel like they're super relevant, so I'm not going to
They're not.
include them. And
Bottom line, he's not a nice dude.
yeah, but anyways, he starts going deep into the dark web and actually becomes one of the, I guess, marketers, you could call it. He creates, they call it like the Amazon of the dark web, but he called it Portobello Road.
Mhm.
And you could pretty much exchange anything illegal on that website, anywhere as small as, like, drug trafficking to as big as like human trafficking and hitman men and stuff like that. So and it kind of he gets put in the room kind of when he's at the top of that, and he's yeah, that yeah. And yeah, that's it. So only one out of the two people was like Clint, definite good person. Solomon Black started off bad, but ended up like wanting to redeem himself, and I felt like he redeemed himself since he was, trying to help kids. And then Chong,
He
bad person.
was. Solomon was trying to redeem himself, but he was starting to backslide a little bit when the incident
Yeah,
happened with his
this is
love
true.
interest. She cheated on him and got pregnant by the other guy,
Yeah.
and he had his heart broken. So he started to kind of backslide a little bit, but on the whole, he wasn't a horrible guy. He was just trying to do the best he could, and he was scared.
Yeah.
The girls that they have in the room, there's Elena, who is an older lady. I believe she has Hispanic descent.
Yeah, she's Hispanic.
Mhm.
'Cause she speaks
Yeah.
Spanish, and yeah, so
Hmm.
it seems
Yeah.
apparent that she's bilingual.
Right. And she's very motherly, or comes off as very motherly,
Yeah.
very soft. Um, but she's currently the head of an orphanage, and it turns out she's the one that's supplying Two Teeth with the kids. Like
Yeah.
they fund the orphanage and they donate to it, but that's really them paying her for the kids.
Yeah.
And she only does like one here and there, nothing too suspicious, and they fake a lot of paperwork too. So
Yeah,
it
they say
looks
that they've
like they
been
disappear a lot later.
well that yeah, they make it
Mhm.
look like they were adopted or transferred to
Mhm.
another orphanage.
Yeah,
Like,
they were sent to a foster home,
yeah.
and they make it look like they ran away from the foster
Yeah.
home because it happens all the time. And they're just labeled as disappeared, they're gone, missing kids,
Yeah.
and they've just been presumed they've run away. Uh, she she's kind of twisted because she seems to really believe that she's doing the right thing, that yes, it's a horrible situation, but it's bringing in the money that they need to keep the place running. So she's seeing it as kind of a noble sacrifice, sacrifice one and keep all these others living well and fed, roof over their head, have the things that they need and things like that.
Yeah, like the
So,
end justifies the means,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah. So, she wasn't the main one handling all of this the entire time. There was the previous head of the orphanage
Mr.
was a lot
Higgins.
worse about it, and he
Yeah.
was skimming a lot off the top of the donations. And he organized the the girl's disappearance, Clint's quote unquote sister. They weren't actually related, but they felt they were siblings. And she saw the footage of Solomon putting her in a suitcase, and she was horrified by it.
Yeah.
And she ended up, when she confronted the head of the orphanage about it, he turned it around on her and said, "You'd be implicated too. Don't think that your hands are clean in this. You're just as bad as me. You have no way out of this.
Mm-hmm.
You're in this now. You need to listen to me, start taking my orders and all this." And she ends up killing him and making it look like an accident
Yeah,
or
she did
suicide.
good. It's kind of
Yeah.
scary. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, she was real smart about it and ended up killing him, making it look like a suicide and doing it well. It was creepy.
Yeah, I'm like, has
And
she done this before? Because
right, I was kind of wondering. But so she killed the guy and ended up taking his place. And she continued it with the reasoning, I'm not as bad as him. I'm not skimming that much off the top. I'm just taking enough for like rent for myself. The rest of it goes to the kids.
yeah, like
But
she upgraded
still giving up a kid.
to a modest place to
Yeah.
live, but she didn't go crazy with it. It's like she was in a one bedroom and now she's in like
Yeah.
I don't know if they said it as like a house or just like a nicer apartment, but
I think it was a nicer apartment.
but it
But
wasn't
it's
like crazy.
still,
Yeah.
but you're still human trafficking.
Yeah, she well, yeah, and she I felt like she truly
She was
thought
cold.
she was a saint. Like
Yeah,
she
she
just
did.
yeah, she was
She did.
extremely full of herself despite the
She
fact
referred to
that
the children as her lambs,
yeah, yeah,
like she was the shepherd.
despite the fact
And
that
she
she
was,
was killing them.
yes, sending them off for slaughter, basically. And she justified it as she's protecting the rest of the flock.
Yeah, but it's like it's not like those kids had a
No,
choice. Yeah.
no, no. You're still a horrible person.
Yeah. Though they did make a point to say it sounded like she only did it like once or twice a year at most because the
Oh
donations
no,
were
she
so
did
low.
it like once every month or so.
Oh, I thought she
Once
said
every
that she
month or every
only
month and a
needed the
half.
donation like once a year or something.
Oh
Maybe I
no.
okay.
No, it sounded the way I read it, it was more frequent than that.
Okay. All right.
But yeah. So she's a horrible person and she's
Yep.
very, very cold, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But the last one in the room is Noelle. And she's a younger girl, but she doesn't seem to really fit in. And you don't find out until later that she's really not necessarily a part of it, except for the fact that she is the one that received something from the girl that was trafficked. They the girl that was trafficked was used for, how do I put this nicely? Involuntary organ donation.
Yeah.
Um, her real name is Hope, the girl
Noel.
that's in the
Yeah.
room. Noelle is really Hope, and her father was this very rich, very powerful man, and he adored his daughter. His name was Thaddeus. I forget his last name because I'm awful with names.
Stad, I think. I don't know.
I guess
It's something
also.
kind of stupid.
Yeah, whatever. But he adored his daughter. Nothing he loved more than her, and he refused to let her die. And instead of waiting on the organ donation list, he used his money and connections to find a suitable donor, which happened to be the girl from the orphanage. And he had her um, kidnapped, and he had someone take out her heart and transplant it into his daughter so his daughter could live. So Noelle eventually finds out that that's why she's okay now. That's how she got through being sick and in the hospital and going in and out of consciousness and all this. It was a pretty bad situation that she was in. But she found out about it and she got really, really, really good at computers and hacking and found out all of the information she could on everyone that was involved. And she came up with this elaborate scheme to right some wrongs. And thus Mr. Dogood was born.
Yep.
Mr. Dogood is the one we hear from throughout the story. He has a smiley face mask with what looks like a little bit of like blood splatter or something. It's really kind of a creepy smiley face mask. And you see him on an iPad and you hear him from the watches that they wear, and he's the one that's basically Jigsaw.
Yeah.
And he's telling them the different tasks that they have to do and their time limits and all of that for the scavenger hunt. And you find out at the end that Mr. Dogood is, well, it is Thaddeus or Thad reading the lines. He's only saying them because he's being coerced.
Yeah. Very much coerced.
Yes.
She was pretty brutal to him.
Yes. So it was really Hope that was the mastermind behind it. And she had two teeth beat the hell out of her father to make him read the lines and everything for the scavenger hunt while she masterminded everything. And yeah, those are the main characters in the story. It's a little bit intricate. It's not quite as intricate as I think we're making it seem, really. I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of more simple than that, but
It's like they're all interconnected, but they each have their individual stories. It's,
yes.
yeah.
And the book is laid out kind of odd. I haven't seen one laid out quite like this,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
but
It's
it was
like,
interesting.
yeah, switching between like backstory and then what was happening, back to backstory, and then also in the mix it had like the FBI files, and they had like a list of like the YouTube comments from like the videos. Yeah, it was a very strange layout.
Yeah, and the comments for YouTube, they were interspersed in there and they didn't really make sense in context
Yeah, they didn't.
until you get to the end.
Yeah, yeah,
When you get to the end, it does make sense why they have them in there and all. I feel like they could have been placed a little differently.
yeah,
If they had them all towards the end of the book, that would make a bit more sense to me.
yeah.
But
But
just personal choice.
yeah. So going on our normal podcast formula, on the entertainment scale, what would you rate this?
I'd give it a 6. I liked it, but it was laid out a little weird, and they went into detail in some of the backstories that I feel like some of it wasn't necessary,
Yeah,
especially with Solomon. Solomon's was forever long. And a lot of it wasn't really that necessary. They honestly could have left it as he got out.
Yeah.
He noped out and got out and became a motivational speaker. And they could have left it at that.
Yeah.
There were some twists and things that I liked, and others that I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it was all right. It was definitely a good starter book. It was a little bit confusing in the layout, but overall, it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I'd give it a 6 too. Like overall, um like in my notes there were multiple sentences, like, no offense to the writer because I know everyone has their different writing styles, but there is a level of technique, like basic technique, that all authors should implement. Because I mean, that's the whole point with art form, is like you're using the basics and then expounding on them to create your own like individual art. Anyways, I found that especially in the beginning, he would say extra sentences that were totally not necessary. Like he'd say, "Oh, this character looks like they would do this, but they're this," or something along those lines. And
Yeah.
but there's multiple lines like that, and it was extremely frustrating because I was like, "Is the character like that, or are they not?" And I could tell it was him trying to tell, it was the author trying to tell you what the character was, but it was from Clint's point of view. And I thought it was completely unnecessary. What he should have done is just let Clint not know, like, say his first impression, but not expound on that, and then later develop so Clint or the reader knows, oh, that character is like this. Like there's no
Mhm.
reason to go to the level of useless detail as he did. um
It does make it seem a little bit disjointed.
yeah, yeah, that was frustrating. And the layout, it could have been worse, but it could have been executed better. But my
I
biggest,
have definitely read worse.
yeah, but my major complaints with the book is well, first, like I can justify why Chong goes by Chong. But whenever I very first read that, my notes were, really, a Chinese man named Chong? Could you get any more freaking like cliche like that?
He did make it better with the backstory letting you know why.
Yeah, but honestly, like for some people, especially people in that culture group, that could potentially be seen as offensive.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes those names are used in a derogatory manner to insult
Yeah.
people from that culture. But
Well, and that's exactly how it was being used
yeah,
against him. And that's why he used it as kind of a shield.
yeah. So Chong, even though I don't like that word was used, at least they justify it to a point where I'm like, okay, I accept. But Solomon Black, like the book is self-aware enough that they're like, oh, really, a black man with the last name
They do
Black?
mention it, yeah.
And I'm like, then
It is a
why?
thing.
It's like, if you made that comment, then why give him the last name Black? Like, I don't
It's,
understand.
it's almost as bad, not quite, but almost as bad as if they'd have named him Friedman.
Or Johnson or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Well, Johnson would have been fine. Like,
I don't know, but
that one's so common
in general,
across
I
the
guess.
board
Yeah,
that
that's
that's not a
true.
big deal.
That's true.
But like you picked one of the top two most offensive names.
Yeah, so that, Yeah, and I mean, for the Solomon Black thing, they didn't even, that was his last name, so there's no justifying that. So I really
Yeah.
think that, if you're self-aware enough to know that that's super cliche, then why even use it? It's like you're not
Pick another
clever.
name.
Yeah, it's like you're not clever to mention later, oh, ha, that's cliche. And it's like, no, then use a different freaking name. And then plus the fact that it I know that Pattinson died, the dirty cop. I know he dies technically first, but out of the main characters that you're watching, they kill off the two minorities first. Why? Why? Like, stop going with
Okay.
the stereotypes. Just, ugh.
To be fair, to be fair, a lot of them are minorities.
3 out of the 5, yeah.
3 out of 5 are minorities. And the two that get away scot-free are not the minorities.
Yeah. So that that really bothered me because there are authors that
Oh, actually,
purposely,
no.
huh?
No, we're wrong. Clint was a minority.
Oh, he was?
Yes. Yes, they mentioned it, actually. They don't make a big thing about it, but he is African American as well.
Oh, okay. Man,
Yeah,
I
they mention it
totally
at the
missed
beginning
that.
and in the middle in his backstory. They mention that even though they're different races, like the
Oh,
girl was white
I
and he
remember
was
now.
African American, but they still felt like they were siblings.
Yeah, they meant, well, yeah, there's that part, and then like way, way in the beginning of the book.
Yeah, when they
Yeah,
first wake up in the
okay,
room,
okay,
when they were
yeah,
describing him. And again, they don't make a big deal out of it at all.
yeah.
They hardly refer to it.
That
So
makes me
it's
feel
it's
better.
it's easy to imagine him almost any way you want, really.
Yeah, because he's
Mhm.
he's just the way his demeanor is, it does kind of, but of course that it doesn't matter either way. But yeah, but still, it's like, okay, we have Clint here that obviously isn't stereotypical. Well, not using your I'm saying your Hollywood stereotypes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but then you have this one character that is like cookie cutter, like, I don't know. It's like, I honestly I did really like Solomon though. The fact that had
I
become a
did.
motivational speaker. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't like that he started to revert back, but it's like
Yeah.
there's only so many steps. It's like you can't make it to the top all the time,
Mhm.
you know.
And he was trying when they were in the scavenger hunt. He was for the most part kind of trying to keep them all alive and safe.
Yeah.
And he helped them through the first part of it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then they came upon the dirty cop,
Yeah.
and then he got his hand blown off.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that's another thing that I don't understand is why did the watch blow up but not the collar?
It was all planned. She needed him for a little bit later because they needed to know where to go. But she still wanted to take out the cop and still punish him because he talked to a cop, because he
Gotcha.
technically broke the rules.
Okay, gotcha.
So when the hand was close enough to the cop's head,
And that's when. Oh,
two birds, one stone.
and for anyone who read the book makes a point to always say how Noelle always has her hands in her pockets. And you
Yes.
later find out that it's because she's the one triggering all of the stuff happening.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's like the
And I thought that was kind of weird when reading it, but
just the
I
fact that they
figured,
kept on.
that might just be a tick that she has. And then when they were going through, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, like this. Before we go to like the more realism skill or whatever, it this book does do some things right, but the
Mhm.
things that it does wrong, it just kind of like ticks away at your enjoyment of the book. I mean, I
It does some things really well, though. Like, the
yeah,
sense of urgency, it
yeah,
does very well.
yeah,
It's very ominous. You can tell there's a very strict time limit, so it feels very intense
yeah,
during some parts. But the thing that I don't really care for is when you're in a really intense part and then suddenly you're in a backstory. Really?
yeah, yeah,
Seriously? I know it's pertinent to it, but like, did we really need it right then?
yeah, yeah. No, I totally am getting that, but I don't know. Did am I just being overly sensitive, or did some of the character stuff bother you too?
It did a little, but I don't think it bothered me near as much as it clearly bothered you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know. I think it's because there's enough complaints about how Hollywood whitewashes a lot of stuff, and whenever there are minorities, there's a lot of issues with very good representation and not making them like the butt of jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so to have a book where not only do they get killed off extremely quickly, but um, a lot of the minorities are a part of. I don't know.
I don't know about extremely quickly.
Well,
First
as the
death
main.
happened like middle of the book.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Um,
Well, first death in the scavenger hunt itself.
yes,
There were a couple of deaths before then that were unrelated.
yeah. But the deaths in this book were very graphic.
Oh, yes.
Especially the cop one. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
dang. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like the teeth were being shot into like people's cheek, and there's like, oh, it.
Yeah.
This book is good at being graphic, that's for sure.
It is. Those parts are very well written, and I'd love to see what other works he's done that hopefully maybe aren't quite as disjointed as this one and keep jumping around to different backstories and things.
Yeah,
Like, stick to linear, please, with this. With something like this. I don't mind in other types of books going back and forth with the backstory as needed for the relevance of what's going on. But for this one, there was just a lot of that.
yeah, like that
And
he could have.
honestly, like we don't really care enough about their backstory. We want to see what happens.
Yeah,
They're in
like
the situation, let's see what happens.
with them asking each other questions, it could have had a similar result depending on, or even if like Noelle, since she knew everyone's backstory, if she put up clues to where the other
Yeah.
characters figured out, oh, you did this, and then that would have been a perfect way to figure out how they're all connected, and maybe even at the end of the book, instead of Noelle kind of explaining things, Clint would have already known because they saw all of these different clues and realized that um, that's why they were all there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get why he did that, and they were placed in certain points that would only feed us a little bit of information at a time. I get that.
Yeah.
And there towards the end of the book, you start wondering, okay, so we've heard of everybody else except Noelle. And then you realize finally, oh, it really was Hope. So we were reading bits of her backstory
Mm-hmm.
all throughout.
Yeah. That was kind of a
And we
cool
just didn't
touch,
realize
though.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just felt like a little much. Like he went too into it.
Yeah.
So a little bit less next time.
Yeah.
But otherwise, good. I feel like it drew fairly heavily on Saw because it was the same type of premise minus the redemption.
Yeah. It was more like a punishment.
Mhm. It was all punishment.
Yeah.
And she didn't punish Clint, but she had him there to as kind of an I'm sorry
Yeah.
and I'll make it right kind of thing. And she gave him the final choice of what happens next is up to you.
Yeah.
So you can tell the the officers what happened. You can tell them it was me, or you can keep quiet and this will likely continue
Yeah.
to the people that this has happened to. And he ends up keeping quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking back on my notes, and there's a few scenes that didn't. I know we're coming up to an hour, so I won't nitpick like a whole lot. But like for instance, whenever they just got kidnapped, there's a part where like Clint almost laughed, and my note was, you got kidnapped and you want to laugh.
It was kind of a hysterics thing.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the way it came off to me is it's almost like one of those times where you have to laugh to keep from crying
Yeah. Or
or
like
he's or
the
panic. Like laughter is kind of a coping thing.
yeah, or whenever they're talking about what you later find out is like a taser, but they're like, "Did you hear bees?" And my notes for
Yeah.
not the bees.
I was sitting here thinking maybe it was some kind of effect of like a trank dart or something.
uh,
I
yeah.
I wasn't sure, but a taser really? It knocked him out for that long? I
I
thought the recovery time from those was a little bit faster.
I think it depends
Unless
on the
she,
taser.
well, also unless she tasered them and then sedated them.
That would make more sense.
That would make more sense, but they don't really mention it, so we have no way of knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. But
But let's go ahead and move on to realism.
yes. So I was trying to find in my notes like the exact instances, but I don't want to make everyone wait for 4 hours. But
Please no.
there were a few scenes in the book that I thought they reacted a little bit too strongly. Like, A, and then they went to Z in like 2 seconds rather than being trying to react in smaller ways and like let it build. Or so, I don't know. Did you get that impression? I felt like they overreacted
I
in some
actually
scenes.
I actually didn't for the most part. Because in that kind of situation, emotions are heightened.
This
You're
is
not
true.
necessarily in your right mind. They're already next to hysterical and they're highly panicked. They've got an explosive device around their hand and their neck.
Yeah.
So they're going to be severely on edge to begin with. And then they're having to break into a gang leader's house, steal his money. He shows up as they're taking the money,
Well,
and he knows what he would do
that was all
to
pretty
them.
legit. It's like more in
That
the
was
beginning.
legit.
Like the
And then
or sorry, go I okay, the part where my note was that escalated quickly was when Solomon is walking through like the newer neighborhood that he's in, and he passes by a girl, and she's like, "What do you want?" It's like he's
oh
freaking
that
walking, and then but it went from him just casually walking, and she's like, "What do you want?" Like, I'm walking here. What the heck? But then it like then escalates to, oh, they're on a first date now. And so my note was, well, that escalated quickly. Like,
so that came off to me as she was already a little bit paranoid. She's kind of jogging alone
I thought she was doing
in the
yoga.
evening. No, I thought she was jogging or
Uh,
walking or something. They were in the park.
let's see. One person. Hang on.
She was exercising in the park.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay.
there's just this random guy that's just kind of watching her. I'd be a little concerned too. And if you were a little bit scared and paranoid like that, you might come across a bit more harsh than you really mean to be.
Yeah,
So
but
I kind of understood that.
yeah.
So
But
she
going
was a little
from
bit stereotypical, a little
but
bit,
but if she's
because
paranoid, then why would she go
she
on
was
a date with
Hispanic
him?
as well. That's why I was saying it's a little bit stereotypical
Yeah.
because she was Hispanic as well. And a lot of the stereotypes are they're really hot-blooded, but they're very passionate too.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, I don't know. It was that one was a little bit weird. And again, that's part of the story that I felt was a little bit unnecessary. They didn't really need to have her in there at all.
Yeah, I feel like the only reason why they had her in there was because whenever Elena spoke with Solomon and he was like, "I'm not your little brother," um,
Yeah.
I looked up what it meant. I was like, "I need to know," and and I,
That's right. You took German, didn't you?
yep, I took German like because I was one of those weirdos.
I did take Spanish. I don't remember hardly any of it, but I did make out that.
Yeah, I had no idea what they were saying. I'm over here like
Google
do
Translate. No, so what would you rate it though
the
on realism?
realism.
Yeah,
Well, okay. So,
because you've been going into why, but not the actual rating.
I would oh my gosh. I would say it's probably like a 4. Cuz just like everything in like their reactions for the most part are pretty legit. But the over the topness. I mean, I understand that this is the book, so it's supposed to be, and it's horror book, so it's supposed to be over the top, but somewhat believable. But I still think a 4 is probably the most appropriate. What do you say?
I would honestly give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10.
Maybe I feel so bad. I hope that like I didn't get biased because this book like a few of the points I didn't
It's
like it
hard
just
not to,
yeah.
but honestly, on the whole, objectively, there is, as awful as it is, I could easily see something like this actually happening for like the kids getting trafficked from the orphanage, them
Well,
faking the
yeah.
papers,
That I can
the
definitely see.
the
Yeah.
rich guy not wanting to wait on the list for a transplant for his daughter and speeding things up using his money, even going so far as using illegal means,
Yeah.
and her getting an illegal heart transplant. I can see a gang member somehow making it out and becoming a motivational speaker.
Yeah, like all of those seem legitimate.
I can see the um, even the a couple of the deaths. I could easily see that happening. Now the scavenger hunt in and of itself, a little bit less believable, the
Yeah.
scenario, but not unheard of. I mean, if someone watched Saw one too many times, took inspiration, I could see that happening. And she wanted to be a part of it. That's often a trait of, I want to say, psychopaths is they want to see or want to be a part of it and see it, or sociopath. I think it might be sociopath.
I know Chong
But
was definitely a sociopath, it seemed.
oh yeah, definitely.
And okay,
For sure,
so
100%.
do you I didn't completely like I guess the reason why some of it's not really realistic is it was the other characters I could see a lot more, but Chong specifically, like I could understand him maybe killing
Just
the
really
bully,
don't like him, do you?
but no, I like as a character and like he was my least favorite character for sure.
Yeah,
But
he
like
was the least likable, for sure.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure they obviously did that on purpose.
Hmm.
But the fact that he went from oh I killed a bully to I want to kill my parents, I did not understand why he wanted to kill them.
So that was showing that he had no emotional attachments. It was showing his um him being a sociopath even way back then. Like, this is who he is. He has no emotional attachments. He doesn't really feel the same things. He doesn't think the same way. He's very intelligent. He's hitting like all these check boxes
Mm.
for sociopath
Yeah.
throughout the backstory and then in the game itself. What doesn't really make that much sense to me is when he attacked Solomon outside of that one house. It didn't make sense at that one time.
Yeah,
Do it later. Like, y'all have
yeah.
explosives strapped to your arms and your neck. Why would you choose right now? And you're on a time crunch. Why would you choose right now to attack him?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, even by your own standards.
Yeah.
The logic doesn't follow.
Yeah.
But I guess they needed the gnome piece in his side for later.
Yeah. So,
But
um,
so that one I did take off a little bit for. But like the technology for the explosives, that's around.
yeah.
I could easily
Unfortunately.
see that.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see um I guess it is at night, so there'd be a lot less people out and about,
Yeah.
but I feel like they'd be very conspicuous. And I know it is kind of gang territory also, so there's going to be a lot of people that will be like, it's not my business. I'm not getting in the middle of this. And they like, if they do see them, they go inside, lock their doors. But I feel like someone would have seen and made mention of them having these weird things around their necks and running around. They're covered in blood. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like there'd be some reports of some of this going on.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it seemed fairly realistic. And I could see that happening. And a lot of the things did make sense and did add up.
Yeah. But you know what I would love though is I wouldn't want them to follow the same structure as the book. I would
Yeah.
want them to either change it up a little bit or improve it, but I would love to see this as a movie.
Yes.
This would
Yes,
be
I
a
would.
really good movie.
Yes. Maybe have instead of the different like witness reports and things like that sprinkled throughout, have it like in the beginning where you know something's happened
Yes.
and then switch and see kind of a little bit of the backstory or them waking up in the room. And then just as they're running, instead of like them running the whole time, that's when you do the transition to the backstory. Have just a little bit, kind of
Yeah.
condense it a little bit.
Like as they're going through, maybe like for Solomon, like as they're going through the
Yes,
neighborhoods, he gets a flashback on, I remember this neighborhood because this.
yes. Because
Um,
we don't need the whole thing.
no.
We don't need him as a little kid. We just need a little bit of him as a gang member and then him getting out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we don't need all of it. We really don't.
No.
It was kind of interesting until it went on too long.
Yeah.
And then we were fine.
Yeah. And plus it was so jarring for it to switch from one to the other.
Yeah,
Um but yeah, like overall, like this book definitely has flaws.
it
But
does.
I think it's worth the read. Just
It is.
at least once.
It is.
If
It's a little bit disjointed, but it's got a lot of good points in there. There are some gory parts, just like in movies, there are some gore in there, some scenes that are a little gross for those of you that are a little sensitive to gore.
I mean, you're on a horror channel, so
What we
you're
do.
in the wrong place if you don't like gore.
But it's interesting, and they do have some twists in there that are really good.
Yeah.
So it is definitely worth the read.
Though, of course, if anyone has not read the book and they are watching this stream, we've kind of
That
ruined the
we've ruined
twist.
everything.
So the book will not be a same experience for
Yeah.
you as it was for us. Because like, at least in my mind, as I was reading the book, I was like even starting as early as Solomon, I'm like, oh, so they're going to give us a background for all of the characters, so that way we can know how they interlink with each other. And then whenever I read Chong's, I'm like, oh, yep, they're showing how they interlink. But it was really interesting though to read each of the backstories and see how
Yeah.
they got intertwined. Like Elena, whenever she saw Solomon come to pick up the girl, I was just like, oh
Mhm.
my god, like, uh, but
I didn't realize that that was the orphanage at first. Like the way they initially described it in Solomon's backstory, they described it more warehouse like.
yeah,
So I
same
wasn't
here.
sure if that was like a holding place for human trafficking or what. Like I was envisioning like hospital beds in a giant room and they were weaving around the different hospital beds. And I'm envisioning like IV lines with sedation and all to keep them under and things like that. So to find out that it was actually an orphanage and they're not being sedated or anything, they're just asleep is just horrifying to me. Like even more so than that creepy
Well,
scene in
they
my
did
mind.
they did say they put something in their food.
Yeah, but I was still envisioning like almost sterile morgue type
Yeah.
location.
See, in my head, of course, it could have been the way I read it, and the way I read it could have been wrong. But I was picturing almost, this is horrible, like a pound, to where it's like as he's walking, there's like cages, and the the kids were in the cages, and they were like knocked out, and then that's when the guy's like, "Oh, we put stuff in their food."
Yeah.
Yeah, it overall like this book, especially like with the inner workings of like the gangs and human trafficking, as as depressing as it is, it does kind of it's a reminder that even though something might like that not doesn't necessarily exactly happen, it's totally possible.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, human
And things like
trafficking
this
is a
do
big
happen every day.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
but yeah, overall a good book, and I worth the read. And I don't I think I said everything that I wanted to say about it.
yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I want to hear some other people's take on the book for sure.
Yeah.
So, if y'all want to expand on anything or if you have a different point of view, by all means, please let us know. Everyone reads things differently, everyone interprets things differently. So, I'm excited to hear some other points of view on this book.
Yeah, like even if the stream has already aired and you're just commenting, let us know what your entertainment rating would be, what your realism rating would be, what your overall thoughts are on like the characters. Like, did you think that some of the characters were stereotypes, or did you like them, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like we want to know your thoughts. And
Yes. And what part was your favorite?
yeah, I guess we didn't say our favorite part. Um
Yes. Hmm.
you you caused some trouble for yourself.
I have two favorite parts. One is, of course, the big reveal when Hope is going through and telling him, like, Elena's not going to get away scot-free because he's like, you let her go. And she's like, oh no, she's not getting away. And explain kind of her master plan and all, and how there's a whole slew of evidence
Hmm.
linking her to everything that happened that night and
Yeah,
even
that was
further
pretty.
back
Yeah, that was
with the
nuts.
trafficking. That was masterful.
Yeah.
So I really like that. And also, I kind of liked her backstory, just the part where she explains how she framed the guy as
Mm.
a suicide.
That I mean, it was creepy. It was
And I loved it
chilling.
for the sheer creep factor.
Yeah, it
Because
was.
I'm sitting here like, dang, girl. That's pretty freaking cold.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's.
gross, but pretty freaking cold.
Yeah.
So,
Um
and it makes sense with her character. Like when she um she moves the TV for it to fall on Solomon and kill him.
That was.
Oh, right. I didn't expect that at first, and
And
then
she is
we hear her
so chill
backstory, and then
about
I'm
it
like, okay.
too. Yeah, like,
Yeah,
oh,
that kind of freaked me out. I'm sitting here like she's the last one I expected to do that.
ugh,
While she's holding a baby too? Seriously?
ugh.
And
Yeah,
then we read her backstory, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. I like,
So those are my two favorite scenes.
yeah, I definitely like Noelle as far as not happy parts, but sweet revenge parts. What Noelle was explaining was definitely my top favorite, but all of the other parts, um, like I think I should just come out and say that I think Solomon Black is probably my favorite character because I thought I did think that his backstory went on for way too long, and for the book's purpose, it was unnecessary. But
Hmm.
I also thought it was extremely interesting. It, with my background, it's not a world I was exposed to, and so it was. And of course, I don't know how accurate it was, but it made me want to root for him. The fact that he
Yeah.
started where he started and then he wanted to get away, and the fact that he is making it honestly kind of hit me hard that he was trying to revert back. It hurt because it's like he had tried so hard to get away and to get um and to be successful, and he
Yeah.
was making it, and then it just kind of came crashing down. So it's like I liked it up to the point where he met what's her face? I forgot what her name.
Love interest, whatever.
Yeah. And then after that, I was just
Yeah.
like, oh.
So I think I think I know why his character bugged me so much. Like his backstory and the depth and everything. When it keeps going into that much detail, it kind of makes you feel like he's the main character and the one to root for.
Yeah.
And then you find out that he's not. And they like blow his hand off. And then eventually he does die. Like they kill him off like
Yeah.
that. Like it's nothing. And I'm sitting here like, then why did you make me read all of that?
Yeah,
If you're just gonna kill him off like that, why did you
yeah.
make me read all of that?
Yeah, but the fact that the author even changed the way he wrote.
Yeah.
So he obviously was taking a lot of care, but
Mhm.
I didn't like so that was pretty cool. The fact that the author even changed how they wrote to try and reflect what the inside of that character's mind is. But with the other characters and their backstory, I didn't really get that impression. There wasn't that big of a change, if any.
I got it a little bit in the structure of their sentences. It did reflect the way that they talked more often than not,
But
especially with their inner dialogue. But
yeah.
it wasn't quite as pronounced as with Solomon.
Yeah, but I did, and I hate saying enjoy because I didn't enjoy it, but I did find Elena's backstory very interesting
Oh, yeah.
whenever she was talking about her inner workings and how
Mm.
she killed Mr. Higgins, and that was so
Yes.
messed up. I
It was
just,
dark and twisted,
yeah,
but I like it because it's dark and twisted. She's a horrible person,
yeah.
and I kind of hated her very easily, but I still liked reading that portion of the backstory
It showed
because of how
how,
creepy it was.
yeah, yeah, like criminal mastermind, and you had no idea without knowing her backstory.
Yeah.
But but yeah, let us know what your favorite characters were and why. Um
And what
the
would you change?
yeah, what would you change? Um so and if the author ever listens to this, I'm so sorry if any of this upset you. I am a fellow writer myself and I know it's not
We did.
easy, but
And we did actually enjoy the book.
we did enjoy the book.
We did.
There's a few things if you're open to criticism. There's a few things that could be improved upon,
Nothing is
but
perfect.
but overall, I totally support the book, and I think people should read it. But
Yeah.
it definitely has its flaws.
Honestly, if it makes you feel better, Mr. Brent or Collings, Mr. Collings, Brent Collings. If it makes you feel better, I'm pretty sure you've gotten the highest realism rating that I've ever given on our
You
podcast as a whole.
have.
So good on you, man. Like
Yeah, it was
it is
extremely well thought
hard.
out. Like,
Yeah, it's hard to get a high rating realism wise from us. So
yeah,
you did good.
it was very obvious that the author took a lot of care
Oh yeah,
into the book by not only
it
fleshing out the
was really well thought
backstory,
out.
but like the logistics of it. And so like that, I am very excited to read his other books and
Yeah,
see if he has a similar level of detail and
yeah.
care. Like that was very apparent.
Mm,
It's just the some of the characters and names and stereotypes. That's the only thing that bothered me really, but everything else totally awesome.
yes. So let us know what y'all thought all around, guys. And if you have any suggestions on other horror books that you want us to read for the next
Yes.
time or the month after, just in the future, let us know. And until then, stay safe and stay spoopy.